All right, welcome to Narrative Management 101. I'm your teacher, Snow Himbo here. Now today we're going to break down a lot of discourse you're seeing online regarding this societal issue or that, which, let's face it, almost certainly applies at any point in time that you watch this video, really. And in this crash course, I'm going to try and go ahead and break down why a lot of the things you're seeing online not only come off as hateful as they do, but also as inorganic and, for lack of a better word, weird as fuck as they do. I'm also going to explain some of the psychology behind it, as I do, so you can kind of attach some meaning to all of this madness. After all, it's really easy to be confused by a lot of these things, and I've covered this in a couple past videos, but I think it kind of does require a little bit more revisiting and fine-tuning into something that you can really understand and apply moving forward out there. Because up on the internet these days, it's a den of sharks. A den of sharks. Yeah, I definitely mixed Shark Tank and Dragon's Den and it became like a den of sharks. You know what? Fuck it. It's a den of sharks. And there's a dragon tank too. I'm just gonna throw that out there. How about that? Put those lentils in your soup. So first and foremost, I'm going to use a handy chart to illustrate how the rich and powerful manage certain narratives in order to brainwash the not so rich and powerful in order to achieve their prime aims. All right, so basically what we have here is a handy flow chart that I've created because I kind of like flowcharts a lot. I think they help me both professionally and emotionally as well, and I think they will help you too. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this flowchart, and you can let me know in the comments when this starts to come off as a little familiar concerning the certain things you've seen over the internet at various points in time, perhaps on the media as well. So first thing we need to do is we need to come up with a narrative. Now, I'm going to come up with a ridiculous narrative because, well, I'm ridiculous. I'm a ridiculous person. So let's go with the narrative that the sky is red. Okay, so we're going to go into here. The sky is red. And that's going to be the narrative we roll with in this scenario. Now, what I'm basically trying to explain here in this flowchart is the concept of binary sorting. And we're going to get into that a lot more in a little bit, but it's essentially, does someone agree with a certain narrative that's being pushed, usually by moneyed interests, and what happens if they don't agree with it? So here we're going to insert, do they accept the sky is red? Now obviously the sky is blue, calling the sky red would be patently false. So here are the decisions. We have yes or no. Do you accept that the sky is red? So if the answer is no, then you are placed in the bad guy box, which is a cute term I refer to as the outgroup that people are placed in whenever they're not following a certain narrative. The most widely popular example, I think in my lifetime, would probably be the war in Iraq, and whether you believe the official weapons of mass destruction narrative or not. So you wouldn't just be put in the bad guy box, you'd also be given a label. Something to identify you as one of the unclean, the unwashed, the non-believer, the dissenter, etc., etc., etc. So, for something like the sky is red, someone who doesn't accept that the sky is red, we could refer to them as anti-sky. And I'm actually going to make that guy angry, because they're usually angry, they're not sad, right? Nobody's like, oh, you didn't believe it. They're usually like... But now it gets a little more complicated, because now we're going into nuance. So, how do you deal with nuance in narrative management? Well, say you have a nuanced opinion. So, maybe someone accepts that the sky is red, but they think, okay, well, the sky could be red if it is the early morning, or if it's, say, sunset. The sky could be red in certain situations, but the sky isn't always red because you don't accept that the sky is red 100%. You are put into the anti-sky category. Famous quote, nuance is the enemy of tyranny. Tyranny is the enemy of nuance. It's something like that. Go look it up. Type tyranny nuance quote into Google. You'll fucking find it. Figure it out. So you also accept the narrative, but you have a nuanced opinion about it. That isn't 100% acceptance. Both of these result in being anti-sky. And finally, if someone does accept that the sky is red, and they don't have a nuanced opinion, they accept that the sky is always red, they are placed in the club. And we could call them pro-sky. And a really neat thing that you can do to show this completely in action is you just take whatever narrative and you replace it with anything else. So instead of the sky is red, think of something that's going on right now over the internet, in the media, something they're trying to push, and think, if I just replace the sky is red with something else, and then replaced what would be considered the label for the out group and the label for the in group, would this whole flowchart still apply? And chances are 9 out of 10 times, isn't that super neat and creepy and depressing and weird, but also super neat? Anyway, now we're going to move on and dip into the specifics here. Now you probably remember in one way or another, this phrase up here, you're either with us or against us. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. You're either with us or you're my enemy, etc., etc. So in political communication, the phrase you're either with us or against us and similar variations are used to generate polarization and reject non-partisanship. The implied consequence of not joining the partisan effort of the speaker is to be deemed an enemy. A contemporary example is the statement of former US President George W. Bush, who declared at the launch of his anti-terrorism campaign, "Every nation, every region now has a decision to make. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists." So you were either in the in group, with us, or you're with the terrorists, the out group. And you see the label there, which is the terrorists in this example. The statement is generally a descriptive statement identifying the beliefs of the speakers and thus state a basic assumption, not a logical conclusion. It may also be interpreted as a speech act. Sometimes it is interpreted as a splitting or false dilemma, which is an informal fallacy. Some see the statement as a way of persuading others to choose sides in a conflict which does not allow the position of neutrality or nuance. Just added that there. Only when there are no alternatives like a middle ground, also known as the golden mean or golden middle way, which is the desirable middle between two extremes, one of excess and one of deficiency, does the phrase hold validity as a logical conclusion. The phrases are a form of argumentation. Now, where does this come from? Now, I've covered this a little bit in past videos, but it does bear repeating as it does completely apply to the weird binary sorting of in-group, out-group you're seeing here, but presenting splitting. Psychology, which is something I'm a little bit familiar with, you could say. So splitting, also known as black and white thinking, thinking in extremes, or all or nothing thinking, is the failure in a person's thinking to bring together the dichotomy of both perceived positive and negative qualities of something into a cohesive, realistic whole. Something further here to consider is, have you ever wondered why you felt the need to make so many disclaimers before you give a spicy hot take here or there? Such as, I'm no X, but I think Y, or I support Z, but I gotta say this thing about A. The reason why you're doing that, and also the reason why you feel the need to self-censor at times, you're subconsciously trying to avoid falling victim to the same binary sorting that we've seen throughout our entire lives. So you might be asking, how can I identify this? And more so, what's to be done about it? How can I understand the madness behind why so many narratives online are either black or white? Well, like a lot of things in this world, what you should probably do is follow the money. So this can be a little easier than you might think to kind of unpack and unravel and figure out why this is happening. In fact, it can be as easy as using your favorite search engine. So for this specific example, we're going to use a more recent topic. That is the recent pandemic we just all went through. Now I'm going to try to be as objective as possible and as neutral as possible and explain everything from an objective point of view and let everybody draw their own conclusions. So we have an article here that's one of the typical anti-vaxxers bad sort of takes. So first thing we should probably figure out is, okay, this is The Atlantic. So what I want to know is what company owns the Atlantic. And a quick trip over to Wikipedia shows the company is Emerson Collective. Well, Emerson Collective is a for-profit corporation because let's be real, for-profit corporations are kind of where all the media comes from now, isn't it? And they're focused on education, immigration reform, the environment, media and journalism, and health. Okay, so where do we go from here? How do we trace a narrative being spread by a media company back to the company that owns that media company and explain this narrative? Well, here's a fun trick you can do. You need to first think about what is the subject of the narrative. So in the terms of that Atlantic article, the subject was vaccines. Now for this, I'm going to type in Emerson Collective funding vaccine. Next, I'm going to go over to the news tab and let's see if we can find anything interesting here. 10 immunotherapy companies making waves in 2023. So this is an article talking about the immunotherapy companies that are making waves. Immunotherapy obviously being a part and parcel of vaccination. Now for this specific article, what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to speed shit up here. And I'm just going to type into Control F, which you use by holding Control and F. Okay. I'm sure you guys understand how to use the fucking internet. I was just checking. I'm going to type Emerson. And oh, look at that. Over the years, Elevate Bio has raised more than $845 million in funding, with its most recent investors being for-profit charity, quote unquote, for-profit charity Emerson Collective. You can usually do this for more than one article. In fact, you might find more than a couple. Here's another one of note. Health tech firm's Colors valuation hits over $4 billion after latest funding. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and oh, would you look at that? Existing investors General Catalyst, Viking Global Investors, and billionaire philanthropist Laurene Powell Jobs' Emerson Collective also participated in the round. So to just tie everything up in a pretty little bow here, what we've learned is that Emerson Collective owns the Atlantic, which posts anti-vaccine shaming articles. Meanwhile, that same company, a for-profit mind you, has skin in the game when it comes to the development of immunotherapies and yes, vaccines. So when I say follow the money, this is what I mean. So the next time you run into this weird binary sorting where everybody seems to be being put in an in-group and an out-group, what you might want to do for some validation in your suspicions as to what's going on is go to a search engine and follow the directions I just gave you in order to trace whatever narrative you're seeing and all of the hysteria around it to where the interests of the rich and powerful truly lie with that narrative. And there you have it. Congratulations. We're at the end of Narrative Management 101. Hopefully you learned some things about narrative management, the reasons behind it, and the formula behind all of this weird binary sorting we're seeing. And hopefully this gives you some tools to apply moving forward in the future. As always, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. And until next time, everybody, stay safe out there. Because let's be real, it's a fucking Shark Tank.